just by wandering around with a stick. Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Do you love all things geeky? Well, so do we. Join us, Jonathan Strickland and Ariel Caston, on the large Nerdron Collider podcast as we take on the geeky news of today and turn it into so bad it's good quick bites of fanfic. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Monday. The world's a good place. Live in Los Angeles, this is the Herd wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio FS1. 1 hour from now, Colin right. Colin was wrong. Plenty of both. Urban Meyer next hour as well. Lots of information potentially there. NFL playoff weekend is set. Joy Taylor, how are you?
I don't even know where to start.
I know.
Where do we start? We start with Friday. We start with last night.
Oh, it was college football had a good weekend. A lot of fun stuff.
Well, it was not a financially fruitful weekend for me, but it was a great watch.
Well, let me start with Doug Pederson, coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Twitter had a meltdown last night. I didn't love what he did. But, there's an old saying with your kids, you can always tell when they're lying because they won't stop talking. Did somebody take the cookie? Yeah, my son would be like 5 years old. He gave me like a 2-minute answer. No would have sufficed. When you start rambling on about stuff, you'd think as an adult you'd learn how to figure out how to fib. But Doug Pederson last night, when he pulled Jalen Hurts against the best defensive front arguably in football, and Jalen Hurts didn't have a big statistical night, but he was a gamer, had a couple of nice drives, and they pull him for a third-string guy. Here's what Doug Pederson said.
Yes, I was coaching win to win. Yes, that was my decision solely. Nate has obviously been here for 4 years, and I felt that he deserved an opportunity to get some snaps.
Well, time out. Giving a third-string guy some snaps because he earned them and coaching to win is two different things. I mean, if that's coaching to win, then Belichick, in the middle of his dynasty, should have been subbing Tom Brady all the time. Give that third-string guy some Ryan Mallett some snaps. If you're coaching to win, you don't pull your best quarterback out of the game. And he's the best available quarterback. Got caught in little fibs, like my son stealing the cookie. 2-minute answer, wrong. He stole the cookie. You can't. Jalen Hurts, first of all, it's a bad night for Doug Pederson. You knew going into this game, points were going to be at a premium. You have a good defense, and so do they. Alex Smith struggled against your defense. Jalen Hurts was a gamer, but kind of struggling. He gets you into field goal position to tie the game. He's a rookie with a handful of starts. Best defensive front in football. Kick the field goal. Going into that game, points were a premium. You can't ask Jalen Hurts to finish all his drives in the end zone. He did his job. He got you in scoring position. Kick the damn field goal. The rookie quarterback with 5 starts did as much as you could ask a rookie quarterback to do against Washington and Ron Rivera's defense. He got you in a position to tie the game. And Washington's got better defensive personnel right now than Philadelphia's got offensive personnel this morning, and he got you in scoring position, and you butchered it. Second of all, while we were tanking to get a better draft pick. What? You went from 9th to 6th. You're not drafting a quarterback. If you were doing that to get Trevor Lawrence, I get it, even Justin Fields. You're not going to draft a quarterback. So you're going to go from getting the best corner to getting the best defensive lineman. You need both. That's not an excuse. Forget the integrity of the game, which you whizzed on. But just think about this. Doug Peterson, according to reports this morning, Carson Wentz wants out. So, you butchered the Carson Wentz relationship. And this is how you nurture the Jalen Hurts relationship? I'll get back. I'm not going to be a moralist here on the integrity of the NFL. The NFL moves the game to Sunday night. You're the only game. You're billionaire owner. You're the only game that we always overreact to everything that happens on Sunday and Monday. Good or bad, we overreact. You got to know the temperature of the room, Doug. But don't give me this. We were coaching to win, and I went to Nate Sudfeld. Those don't work. They don't converge. If you're coaching to win, you keep Jalen Hurts in. You stole the game from Jalen Hurts. This would have been a signature win going into the offseason. The Jalen Hurts knocked the Washington football team and the best defense in the division and a Super Bowl winning coach out of the playoffs. That is a great offseason. And you're not a great team. Sometimes an average college football team wins a bowl game. But boy, it makes the offseason training and recruiting better when you win that Sun Bowl, you win that Holiday Bowl. It's not beating Bama. It's not beating Clemson or Ohio State, but it's winning a bowl game, and that would have been a great win for Jalen Hurts. A tremendous win over the best defensive front in the NFC. And so, it's funny, Bill Belichick, week 17, he was playing to win. Anthony Lynn just got fired this morning. 4-game winning streak end of the year, coaching his ass off. Houston Texans are a mess. Who is their coach? Romeo Crennel. They're playing hair on fire. And you're going to Nate Sudfeld. And by the way, it reeks of arrogance. So, I'm reading a story this morning that Carson Wentz and Doug Pederson's relationship is fractured beyond repair. So your owner, Jeffrey Lurie, a top 5 owner in the NFL, pays Carson Wentz $150 million. Your job is to nurture that thing and develop that kid from North Dakota. And you butchered it. And then, now Jalen Hurts is the next one you're going to have to pay. And last night, you think Jalen Hurts gave you a little side eye there on the sidelines. So did his offensive lineman. None of this I thought was good. And I don't want to spend too much time on the integrity of the NFL. And, it's Indianapolis Colts wanted to get Andrew Luck. I got it. I would get it if they were like going to the number 1 choice. But I thought it was a bad night. I thought it was arrogant. I thought you stole something from Jalen Hurts. These rookie quarterbacks, these Joe Burrows and these Justin Herberts, all these young kids out there, these Tuas, these last couple of games matter. Like, that's what you think about in the offseason. You're going to work out in a cold day. That gets you into the gym a little earlier. Oh, last game, we played well. I got a couple of W's. And Doug Pederson stole it from him. Okay, here we go. Super wildcard weekend. So, a bunch of interesting games. Saturday, Colts at Buffalo. You know I like Buffalo. Rams at Seattle. I have no idea who's winning that game. Tampa at Washington. Could be closer than you think. Baltimore at Tennessee. Chicago at New Orleans. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. 2 of these games feel like they could get ugly. The Bears are not going to New Orleans and beating the Saints. That's going to be ugly. And Cleveland at Pittsburgh has the potential to be a tire fire. Pittsburgh's going to roll. First of all, the Steelers played their backups. Their backups against the best Cleveland Browns roster in at least 15 years, maybe 30. And it was close. Pittsburgh's offense yesterday, as far as I could tell, was a backup quarterback mostly throwing jump balls up the sideline. And it was close. There's 3 tiers. When you go to a wedding, there's 3 tiers of guests. There's the bridal party, family bridal party, front table. That's why we're all there. Then the second group of people, they're around there, 6 or 7 tables. That's an extended family. These are close people. You vacation with them. You babysitting kids, and that's it. And then there's the third tier of guests, which is, the obligatory invitees. The playoffs are similar, and the Bears and the Cleveland Browns feel like, the obligatory invitees. You got to the wedding, been at the back table. Yeah, I ran into Doug at a golf tournament a couple years ago. I felt like, honey, I had to invite him to the wedding. Yeah, I saw Cheryl actually in Cancun. We bumped into each other, and we got along. She bought me a daiquiri. I thought I had to invite her to the wedding. That's the Browns and the Bears. First of all, the Bears had a 6-game losing streak. Unless you're the Jags and Jets, that's hard to do. The Bears had a 6-game losing streak near the middle of the season. Utter chaos they're in. And the Browns had a negative point differential. Again, not easy to do and make the playoffs. I mean, Pittsburgh sat 4 of their 6 starters, 4 of their 6 best players, backup quarterback, on the road, and they almost won. 2-point conversion could have changed everything. So I kind of feel like this morning, in Cleveland at the end of the year kind of sputtered. They lost to the Jets, could have lost to the Steelers. Yesterday, the Bears were unveiled. Mitch Trubisky, low ceiling, kind of fool's gold. Now, I know a lot of you will say, well, what about Washington? What about Washington? Well, what about Washington? Washington's got an excuse. They had a coach fighting cancer, draft pick quarterback busting. They had a new staff. They had no preseason, and they started 1-5. But since then, they've been 6-4. They have a Super Bowl coach. They have the best defensive front in the NFL. And I wouldn't want to play Washington with Alex Smith. I wouldn't want to play Washington. I like to play Chicago, and I like to play Cleveland. So I kind of feel like the Bears and the Browns are at those couple back tables at a wedding. And you know how you go to, if you're ever at a wedding and you're one of those back tables, you're sitting around with a bunch of people that, like you, are surprised they actually got invited to the wedding. Yeah, I can't believe it. I got in the mail. I was like, I haven't seen Doug in 4 years. I can't believe they invited me to the wedding. That's the Bears. That's the Browns. Congratulations. It's been 18 years for Cleveland, but it's this fire will be doused rather quickly. All right, coming up next, there's a reason Tom Brady is rolling, and it's not because he's playing Detroit and Atlanta. A lot of people, including Patrick Mahomes a couple of weeks ago, played Atlanta and didn't look very good. Tom Brady, 43 years young. Colin right, Colin wrong. Top of next hour. The story on Tua. What are the Dolphins to do? All coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeart Radio Network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
And you never know who's going to stop by. Our record store is frequented by musicians, producers, writers, actors, and especially lots of unfamous nobodies like you and I, Tara.
That's right.
As long as they are excited to talk about music, they'll probably make an appearance in our record store sooner or later, and we can't wait to talk to them.
I want to find out what their top 5 debut albums are.
I want to find out who their top 5 Beatles are.
Wait.
Exactly. So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Start the new year with Butcher Box. 10 pounds of meat, ultimate keto bundle, 1 pork butt, 2 pounds of ground beef, 3 pounds of bone-in chicken thighs. Sign up, butcherbox.com/herd, butcherbox.com/HERD. So Tom Brady threw for 4 touchdowns. He looked great again. Oh, it's just the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, you mean the team that gave the Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes trouble a couple weeks ago? They blew him out twice. A lot of NFL scouts, a lot of former players, now broadcasters, a lot of anonymous New England coaches. You heard a lot of stuff when Brady left New England. He's washed. He's done. In the last month of the year, he led the NFL, the entire league, including Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, in passing yards, passing touchdowns, 4-0, and second in passer rating. He finished with 40 touchdowns, 12 picks, 65% completion percentage, and a passer rating above his career average. Arm still solid to above average. Athletic ability, never had much. Leadership, A+, pre-snap, outstanding. Tell me dramatically where Tom Brady is not as good as 5 years ago. Now, he's older. Like LeBron James, when you're older, he can't play 39 minutes every night. Tom needs a little more help, needs a little better protection, doesn't want to get hit. But he has predictably aged well. One of the reasons I thought Brady would win the divorce and do well, I predicted New England would stink this year and Brady would be a playoff guy. I thought if they'd win 9 or 10, they won 11. His numbers are better than I thought. But I thought they would be very good. Is because he's got the right traits. You ever meet anybody? I'll make a prediction. If you know somebody that's 40 and they eat pretty well, don't do a ton of red meat, not a ton. They exercise regularly. They have compatible personalities. They're not combative. They're compatible. They get along with people. They laugh easily. They like to laugh. They're curious. They have a nice social circle, and they have for years. They have pets. They'll age well. Those are good aging traits. Brady's got great aging traits. So does LeBron, by the way. They eat right. They work out. They're curious. They're coachable. They spend a lot of money on their body. It's not a coincidence that smokers and people who, knock down about 6-7 beers a night, argue on Twitter all day, really political, small social circle, look like crap at 60. Like Big Ben does not have aging well traits. He doesn't. Work ethic, debatable. Diet, regrettable. Drama all the time. Like Brady has the kind of traits. This is why Russell Wilson will probably age very well. It's why Brady does. It's why LeBron does. Smart people who are willing to put in the time, who are compatible with other systems and coaches and people and teammates. This is what you look like if you have some talent. Big Ben's closer to what you look like if you're not quite an A at those. You're a B to a B minus at those. So Brady's not washed. He's also not somebody who has relied heavily on his ability to evade the pass rush. All of his football traits, leadership, pre-snap, smart, efficient, accuracy, those all age really well. Like the baseball player. The stolen base leader doesn't age as well. As the third baseman who's got a good arm, treats his body right, hits for some power. Here's Joy Taylor with the news.
Herd of the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, we know what this particular Monday in NFL season means.
Yeah, people getting fired.
Yes, well, the Chargers have fired Anthony Lynn after 4 seasons as the team's head coach. The Chargers won 4 in a row to finish 2020, but a 7-9 record was Lynn's second losing season in a row. He leaves the team with a 33-31 regular season record with only 1 playoff win in 2018.
He started, I was talking to a friend last night about this. He started losing the same way, which is always trouble because then you get a brand. So he would get leads. I know Anthony, good dude, alpha. They never took a playoff. That team played hard, so he'll get a second job. But Anthony got into this thing where they'd get leads, he'd get conservative, and they'd lose leads. And then in the last couple of weeks, he started listening to analytics more, and they didn't, and they won. But it was a little bit too little and late. And also, Justin Herbert was so darn good that you get to a point where you're like, okay, we may have like John Elway here. We got to get this thing right fast.
Had they had a season like this, perhaps with Tyrod Taylor,
He'd keep his job.
he'd probably have another year.
I think he would.
And we hadn't seen anything from Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert started the clock on a lot of people.
It's like 5
He
minutes
started
into
the
the game.
clock on Tua. He started the clock on Anthony Lynn.
Yep.
And I guess it's fortunate for Justin. Well, we'll see who they hire, but it's fortunate for Chargers fans because now you have the quarterback of the future. He's a rookie, so you have several more years of not having to pay him a lot of money, and they already have a lot of talent on that team.
Oh, yeah.
So they're in a great situation moving forward. The only unfortunate thing for the Chargers is the division that they're in.
Right.
So you're kind of always fighting for a wild card spot in that situation, at least for the next 10 years with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But Justin Herbert had an incredible season. He set the rookie record for touchdown passes with 31.
I think you said it right. It's a great way to say it. He set the clock. He reset the clock on everybody. Like when Justin Herbert came in, you know what? We're a little less patient with Tua. I mean, that's the reality. I look at Tua and I'm like, okay, I saw Justin Herbert.
Joe Burrow, you should expect. He's the number 1 overall pick. He was national champion and had one of the greatest season for a college football quarterback ever.
He better start looking like Justin Herbert. Like, I mean, that's the reality of it. When Andrew Luck came in, all the young quarterbacks got judged like, well, if Andrew Luck can do it with the worst offensive line in football, why aren't you in it?
You're going to be judged by your peers, contemporaries, no matter what. But certainly you're going to be evaluated by your draft class on a higher level. Because you should be, in theory, not only on at least on the same level as them, but better. You were drafted before him. Now, one space before him, but still, he started the clock on a lot of people. So I don't know what direction the Chargers are going to go in, if they're going to go with a coordinator or a former head coach, but they're now in competition with several other teams as well, because there are a lot of jobs available.
You better challenge Justin Herbert, 4-point college student. The knock on the Oregon staff was
they didn't push him,
and they couldn't keep up with him. Like, the offense wasn't sophisticated enough for him, because we saw him go to the NFL. We're like, God, Oregon coaches.
He's like a different player.
Like, what are you doing? So you better find somebody that can keep wits with him, because when you're a college athlete and you're over a 4-point student in biology, he's probably a pretty quick kid.
I'd like to see them bring in an offensive coach.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins were the odd team out in the AFC playoff picture after losing to the Bills.
Wow.
Tua struggled against Buffalo, threw 3 interceptions in the game. The usually strong Miami defense also had a tough time. They allowed a season-high 56 points. And Josh Allen put up big numbers, 224 yards and 3 touchdowns before being replaced by Matt Barkley in the second half. This was the worst case scenario for the Miami Dolphins.
And Tua. Yeah.
Yes. So, look, losing to the Bills is that's okay. That's allowed. The Bills are a Super Bowl bound team. They're playing out of their minds, and Josh Allen is having an MVP season. That's acceptable. Now, the defense, I don't have an explanation for. 56 points is a disaster.
Maybe it's just Buffalo's. Maybe it's Josh Allen. Maybe
Buffalo is playing incredible, but look, you're not going to have a Super Bowl performance by your defense every single week either. And when your offense is getting off the field within 3 minutes every single time, that doesn't help either. Tua averaged 6.3 yards per attempt this season. He tied for 29th out of 35 qualified players. He's not pushing the ball down the field. It's very obvious, and dink and dunk is fine if you also have the capability of going over the top. I was thinking about it yesterday because, obviously Tom Brady, especially in his last few years, a lot of people are saying he's regressing, he doesn't have the arm strength or whatever. Like, Brady has been death by a million cuts for most of his career, but he can also put it downfield like that with absolute accuracy. You can't disrespect him. You have to have that in your bag. It's fine if you want to be precision and do short passes.
It's what's hurt Drew Brees in the last 3 years.
Yes.
They dump off to Alvin Kamara a lot. And thank God Michael Thomas is virtually uncoverable. But no, there is something to say with Tua. I feel like he's playing safe.
Yes.
And if he doesn't punish you over the top, what's the point? Beat me there.
And in a game like this, when it's completely gotten away from you, why not? Why not make him push it down the field? Like, he's already had 3 interceptions. Like, how much worse can it get? Let him air it out. It was the worst case scenario. Justin Herbert sets a new record for rookie touchdown passes. You've got Josh Allen, who's going to be in your division for a very long time, putting 56 up on you, and Tua looks like that, and you've got Texans pick. It's a rough situation for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it is. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
It's really funny when you go into the playoffs. Does hot matter? Like, Baltimore and Green Bay are hot. Kansas City's really good, but not playing well. But it is amazing. I counted this morning 8 teams in the playoffs that have major issues. I mean, Tennessee's defense is bad. Seattle's offense is currently bad. Chicago's got a quarterback issue. So does Indianapolis. You don't have to be a perfect football team to make the playoffs. But what you've got to be able to do is hide your flaws. Can Cleveland hide its back end of its defense? They can against Buffalo. Maybe they will against Pittsburgh. But there's only 4 teams in the NFL that I look at now and I think, I wouldn't want to play Baltimore, Buffalo, Tampa, Green Bay. Let's bring Greg Jennings on, decade in the NFL, Super Bowl, Pro Bowler. He called the Falcons Bucks, joining us. brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. So it is easy to say, Greg, well, they beat Atlanta twice. But I watched Atlanta give Kansas City real problems. I saw Mahomes struggle with Kansas City 2 weeks ago. You also know it is hard to beat an in-division rival, thump them 2 times in 3 weeks, regardless of the personnel issues. So it does feel like with Tampa, you saw it feels more than just, well, it's Atlanta. It does feel like Tom Brady in the offense is kind of lubricated and gelling here a little bit. What did you see?
That's exactly what I saw, Colin. And when you talk to those guys within that locker room, specifically Tom, he knows what time it is. And he wasn't concerned about the regular season and how it looked optically to those outside of that locker room. This is exactly where they wanted to be, gelling at the right time. It took him time to really get a grip on the offensive verbiage and get comfortable within this offense. And we're seeing him more comfortable, him throwing the ball with more timing and rhythm. And then you get Antonio Brown and Gronkowski. They're starting to find their football legs. They've been removed from the game for so long. This team is coming together at the right time. Offensively, defensively, they were missing a few guys, and it showed. But Atlanta Falcons gave them a run for their money, and they came through and with a statement win.
You know, I got to ask you about. I didn't like what Doug Pederson did. I thought he got caught in a lie. He said, I'm playing to win the game. Well, then you wouldn't go to your third-string quarterback. I mean, if the Packers in your prime were trying to win games, they wouldn't go to a third-string receiver and take you out. Now, if they wanted to argue, we wanted to get Greg Jennings back up reps, that's fine, but that's not playing to win the game. As a former player, I just feel like hockey and football, you cannot take a play off. You lose locker rooms when you start looking ahead 6 months down the road. I didn't like it, and I never played the game. How did it sit with you?
I didn't mind it. I didn't like what he said afterwards, and I think that's what kind of made it a lot more skewed than what it should be. They didn't have anything to play for. However, you do want to play to win, but they have a quarterback situation, and he wanted to evaluate his quarterback. That is fine. Just say that, but don't say what you just alluded to. Oh, we're still playing to win. Yeah, you want to win the game, but the likelihood of you realistically believing you're going to win, playing your third string guy, getting him reps that he hadn't had all year pretty much, you're not really playing to win. You're not giving your team the best chance that puts them in position to be successful. And that's where the problem lies. And so I don't think he owed, I heard Nick write this morning, I don't think he owed the Giants anything. But he does owe it to his players to be honest and forthright and just let them know, look, guys, we have a quarterback situation. We're trying to evaluate all talent, everyone, including himself.
Yeah. So there's always been this little. You would think. I know in March Madness for years, you think, oh, the teams that are hot will do really well in March Madness, and the history shows it's just not true. You go into March Madness, it's a whole different style of basketball, and there's a lot of pressure on favorites. So in the playoffs, you would think, well, Baltimore's hot, and Green Bay is hot, and Tom Brady is hot, and Tennessee can't get its defense together. And I've seen that. Then you go to the playoffs, and it's like, okay, all the veterans play with more intensity. The young guys shrink a little bit. So you tell me, in your NFL career with Green Bay, did playing well week 16, 17 matter? Did you ever struggle at the end of a year and catch fire? What does it mean to be hot at the end, if anything?
It does mean something. It means something to be playing really well and gelling at the right time. The Giants did it for years. They would struggle throughout the beginning of the regular season and then come on strong late. We did it the year we won the Super Bowl. We got in the week 17 against the Chicago Bears, and we went on the road as a wild card team and won the Super Bowl because we gelled at the right time. So I think it does matter. But however, more than that, it's who you're facing. It's matchups. It's the opponent that you're matched up with. And sometimes you just get matched up with, just like in the seedings of the NCAA tournament. It's not a good matchup. It doesn't matter what the records are. Sometimes matchup wise, it just doesn't suit the number one team or the lower ranked team, and that's where things can kind of go awry. And so I think it is important for teams to be hot. Green Bay is very hot. Kansas City is not. They're hobbling into the postseason, which is a concern for guys like me who've done that, who've been 15-1 and struggled the first round or the first game that we saw against the Giants after getting that bye. It makes a difference how you enter into the postseason.
You know, it's Joy said something earlier that Justin Herbert was so good so fast that it reset the clock on Tua. That you're like, well, wait a minute, Tua, you come on, you look, and I watch Tua, and I see Sunday, and you put him juxtaposed with Josh Allen, bigger, stronger, arm, confidence. Miami's got a number 3 pick. I mean, where do you sit with Tua today after that was the biggest NFL game of his career? They've got the defense, special teams, and it just didn't look good. Where are you today with Tua?
Well, there are questions that need to be answered, and I was hoping that he was able to answer some of them. And listening to Joy, she touched on a lot of what I was saying even last week entering into this game. He had an opportunity to just let it all hang out. Look, you have nothing to lose. Push the ball downfield, put threats, and put defenses in a position to where they have to guard beyond 10 yards, and that's something that's concerning because we all know offensively, you can't it is so hard to methodically dink and dunk and get 5 and 6 yards and go to 10 to 14-yard drives every single possession. It's almost virtually impossible. You have to win with chunk plays, explosive plays. How does that look? Getting the ball downfield, and that's something that Tua, we saw him do it at Alabama, and that's what's so alarming to me. He can do it. He's just not comfortable. He's not confident right now in his ability. And then you look at Josh Allen, who he was going up against. His confidence is through the roof to where his belief is just like automatic.
Yeah.
I know I got this.
Yeah.
I know who I am, and it's showing.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Josh Allen is he's like a basketball player who's hit 4 straight threes. He's taking bad ones, and he doesn't even care what it looks like. Finally, I do think it's significant. I think Lambeau Field, Aaron Rodgers may be a California kid, but he looks very comfortable in cold weather. There is something about Lambeau. It gets darker and colder over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and I do think it plays with your head if you're a dome team like New Orleans. I think it. Go back to your career because Green Bay's playing really well right now. Did you ever face a team and think to yourself, "Oh, Lambeau's in their head. This weather's in their head"?
Of course, you can look at when teams come out in the pregame. It's happened to us. If guys who play in the cold, I remember the 13-3 year we had where the Bears ended up beating us, and I mean they beat us bad. Soldier Field, we ended up facing the Giants, and we lost to them in the NFC Championship game in 08 or 07, and they came out pregame, they were all sleeves. We came out pre-games, we were no sleeves, and then we were freezing. We went back in, they come out, Colin, and none of them had sleeves on. We knew right then they beat us. It was mental. And so you talk about a team that plays indoors, and I've been on the sideline with an older quarterback in Brett Favre, and he admitted to being cold and it impacting him. And when I look at Drew Brees, they don't want Tom Brady. He's mentioned, you're not going to catch me living in the Northeast anymore or up north. Like, they don't want to be in those climates. But the difference is Tom Brady has found this idea of, and he said Bill Belichick taught him this, where you got 3 hours. 3 hours. Forget practice. You got 3 hours in one opportunity every time you step on that field for 3 hours to just give me everything you can as best as you can. And so, but you can't attest and you can't account for that weather. And when it's cold and it's not going right, it quickly goes south.
Yeah.
And that's the concern I have for Drew Brees and the Saints and Tom Brady and the Bucks going into Lambeau.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point with New Orleans and Brees, and it just, not that I'm old or anything, but you creak a little more when you get that.
Just a little bit.
When that 5 is the first number in your age, I can attest to that. Greg Jennings, buddy, great seeing you. You do a great job on the games. Thanks so much, man.
I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you guys.
Same to you. I have actually a theory, and I have a lot of theories, and many are wrong, but I have a theory on why Tua is struggling. I want you to hear me out. You won't hear this anywhere else, and I may be wrong. Trent Dilfer's on next hour. He can listen to it too. I have a theory on Tua and what he needs and why he is playing so safe. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Ever wonder what would happen if the 7 dwarfs from Snow White met up with the 13 dwarfs from The Hobbit?
Ever gone into a deep discussion about who is the ultimate mouse? Mickey, Mighty, or Danger?
Ever dressed up like Doctor Who at a water park?
Then join Ariel Caston
And Jonathan Strickland on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast,
where we discuss all things good and geeky, from news to hot button items to personal geek failings, and then mash it all together in a hilarious melange of nerdiness.
He's Jonathan. I'm Ariel. You'll find us on Large Nerdron Collider. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you ever wish you could get more from your podcast? Well, you can with BuzzFeed Daily, hosted by me, Casey Rackham.
And me, Zach Stafford. On our show, we've got more good news and more pop culture.
More memes and more celebrity tea.
More of everything that's blowing up your timeline and trending on the internet.
Every weekday evening, we're giving you more of what you need to enjoy your day. Because what's life if it isn't to be enjoyed?
Listen to BuzzFeed Daily on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is a pleasure to have you in on a Monday, top of next hour, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong, plenty of both. Steph Curry had quite a night last night in the NBA, holy crow. So, Tua, and we said last week, Sunday's going to be really interesting, because you have big, strong, mobile, huge arm Josh Allen, small, less mobile, decent arm, not special, Tua. And I loved Tua coming out of college. I loved him. In fact, I said Tua won. Herbert and Burrow next. And then right before the season started, Joy is my witness, I said, I'm worried about Tua. He hadn't played yet. And I said, I'm worried about him. I watch Herbert's size and arm and mobility. And I see Burrow's kind of flexible, Tony Romo, ad-lib, make-it-up coolness. And Tua's very system and very safe. And yes, he'll be accurate. But I worry about Tua. And this, yesterday, is what I worry about. 5.7 yards an attempt. That's playing it safe. And with a lot of young quarterbacks, it is harder to evaluate. They go to bad teams. Is the head coach right? Anthony Lynn, Justin Herbert, is he holding them back? The culture, the personnel. God, will the Bengals front office and offensive line be the undoing of Joe Burrow? Those are very fair questions. That's my question with both the Chargers and the Bengals. But with Tua, it's different. The coach appears to be great. The GM aced the draft and free agency. The culture, the momentum, the defense, the special teams, they're excellent. Now, the offensive line and the weapons are not great, but they seem to work for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yards per attempt, Ryan Fitzpatrick is 8th in the league, and Tua is 30th. And when you watch Josh Allen on the same field with Tua yesterday, forget the number of games they've played. Just the quantifiable it stuff. Size, mobility, confidence, arm, swagger. It's a 4-point student and a 2.8 student. It's B minus to A plus. And I'm not saying, you know, again, with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and even Josh Allen is a rookie. Patrick Mahomes' first start, year 1, week 7. There's like a whoa factor. Whoa! What did I just see? I'm 9 games in with Tua. And he's kind of, you know, he moves pretty well in the pocket. He's accurate. That's kind of baseline stuff, right? It's like loving your kids. Like, accurately throws the football. I kind of hope you are. That should be kind of a given. It wasn't with Josh Allen, but you're not going to work in the NFL if you look like Andy Dalton did yesterday. You're just not going to work in the NFL. But I'm going to throw something at you. So we are all products, myself included, of our environment. I had kind of a witty, fun mom. I had kind of a serious dad, so sometimes I have a sense of humor, but I can be serious. We're all kind of products of what we're raised around. So let's look at Tua, who had a rigid, punitive father, a strong father. There was one way to play football, and it came from dad. And then he went to St. Louis High School in Honolulu, the best high school football program on the islands. Cal Lee, a legendary defensive-minded coach, was his coach. Cal Lee's got a system and a way to play defense. Wins games. Then he went to Nick Saban, who's got a system too, and he's a defensive coach. Just don't lose it for us. And then he goes to Brian Flores, who is also a defensive coach. That's his football environment. Strong dad, punitive high school, punitive college. Defense, 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 system, system, system. When I watch Tua, he looks like he's been raised around people that have told him, don't lose the game. Keep it accurate, keep it safe. We'll dial you stuff you can do. Now, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe this is just what he is. But if you had 4 defensive coaches your whole life and a strong-willed dad, maybe this is a little bit. Maybe he needs a progressive young offensive coach. Maybe he needs a Brian Dable level coordinator, a risk taker. But when I watch him, he plays safe. Well, that's mostly what Nick Saban's coaches do. Tom Brady in New England was good, but he wasn't a big risk taker. Tom would throw it away. Tom even practiced getting sacked. Tom didn't make a lot of mistakes. Tom didn't just let it rip. Flores, Saban, Cal Lee, Dad, that's what he's been around his whole life. That's what he's heard. Those are the voices. You wake up, you can hear him. You go to bed, you can hear him. Maybe it's time to get him to loosen him up. Ryan Fitzpatrick clearly doesn't view football the same way. Ryan, I'd like to bring in a little bit. He's Mr. Loose, Mr. Gunslinger, far very much like that. Tua is the exact opposite of the spectrum, where I just feel like he just doesn't want to make a mistake. And I think that is, that's like thinking when you're shooting a basketball. If you're not, the late Kobe Bryant, if you're not willing to shoot an air ball, then you shouldn't be a shooter. I mean, 0 for 8 to the late Kobe Bryant, man, well, I've got to hit the 9th. I'm not going to miss 9 straight shots. Boy, Tua throws a pick, he gets a little more rigid, he gets a little more safe, and, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe maybe they need better weapons and it'll correct everything. But just a thought, as we move into hour 2 on a Monday, folks, Michelin wipers, Walmart's the place you get them, last 2 times longer. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades on the Monday. Colin right, Colin wrong next.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I love being able to share my story with you on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and I, we get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. Hey, it's going to be your church and your turn up. So listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams every Tuesday, a part of the Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's been 30 years since the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210. 30 years since we walked the halls of West Beverly High, and since we all hung out at the Beach Fit. Relive it all with Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling on their new podcast, 90210 OMG. We get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happened. Join them as they rewatch every episode of the beloved 90s TV show from the very beginning. Listen to 90210 OMG on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything,
drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go to Monday, live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. This is not officially a holiday week like last week, so we all need to get our act together now. So, Saturday and Sunday we have a bunch of playoff games. Then Monday we've got Ohio State, Alabama, which I think is going to be a shootout because I don't think either defense will stop the other. I like Alabama, but I think it's really competitive. Joy Taylor is joining me. The Buckeyes did me well on Friday. I did think they were the play. I thought Justin Fields, by the way, did himself well.
I was very disappointed in my pick and prediction, but very happy for Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think he's not going to lead Trevor Lawrence. People have to settle down. Trevor Lawrence is going to be number one.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, let's not. You can lose to LSU and Ohio State. It's okay. But Justin Fields, I thought, secured himself over everybody else. I mean, to play Clemson, to hit on big.
Oh, I mean, and those over the top passes
were perfect. They were perfect
so
throws.
Impressive.
So I think he secured himself as the number 2 quarterback. And that's very exciting. Urban Meyer, Trent, Dilfer later this hour. Well, we call it Colin right, Colin wrong. I have strong opinions. Sometimes I whiff, sometimes I don't. Here we go.
Where Colin was right?
Well. I've never done this before. I picked 7 out of 7 AFC playoff teams. I picked the Chiefs, the Bills, the Steelers, the Titans, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Colts. I got them all right. Now, you say, what about Pittsburgh? Yeah, in the summer I banged on them, but you remember we have the tape September 10th, opening day. I said I'm going to move them up to 8-8, and they will sneak into the playoffs. Now, they didn't sneak into the playoffs, but nonetheless, I've never done that. Every team right. In the conference to make the playoffs. I also got 11 of 14. I had the Packers, Saints, Seahawks, Tampa. I still can't explain the Chicago Bears. I don't get it. I don't get how the Bears were way better than the Vikings. That one I don't get.
Where Colin was wrong.
Thanks, Doug Pederson. The Blazing Five went 2-3, so I finished the year 40 wins, 42 losses, 2 ties. I've never had a losing season. Between COVID, no preseason, I had an awful start. First 5 of the first 6 weeks, I had a losing record. I think I had a couple of 1-4s. I was a mess. Could never catch up. And again, thanks, Doug Pederson, for tanking. I could have ended up 500 with that, but that's not the way it worked.
Where Colin was right?
I never bought into this nonsense that Tom Brady was a system quarterback, because Josh McDaniels left New England, bombed with the Rams, bombed in Denver, and bombed this year. And I'm not blaming Josh McDaniels solely, but if the system's all about New England, why Josh McDaniels, the head of it, everywhere he goes without Brady, the system doesn't work. And Tom does. Tom had 40 touchdown passes this year. New England had 10. We're always trying to discredit Brady. Folks, you don't win 6 Super Bowls. Even if you have the best coach, he never had the best weapons, he never had the best running backs, he never had the best receivers. One year he had the best tight ends. He rarely had the best defense. It can't just be Tom Brady and Belichick. At some point, Belichick's now won 44, 45% of his games without Brady. Too many people jumping on that he's washed. No, he's old, meaning he needs a little more help, but he's still great.
Where Colin was wrong.
Boy, that Adam Gase thing didn't work out for me. When I really figured out I was wrong on Adam Gase, it wasn't that Sam Darnold kept regressing, which he did. It was that Ryan Tannehill left him, and since Ryan Tannehill has started, he's an A to A- quarterback. Hell, I'd argue he's an A+ statistically. Is that Tannehill has totally rejuvenated his career, and Darnold's gotten worse, even though Joe Douglas had a good draft, and they were a little better personnel-wise offensively this year. Last couple of years' worst offense. I was always told he was a little, poor man's version of Kyle Shanahan, and he was not.
Where Colin was right?
Well, before Tua start, I said, I worry there's no special. Boy, the last couple of 3 weeks, I worry about him. 1 touchdown, 3 picks, doesn't throw over the top. He's accurate, but I always feel like that's kind of a base. If you're not accurate, you have to be so mobile that for the first couple of years in the NFL, until you get your accuracy right, Josh Allen or Lamar, you buy some time with your legs. I don't see the special. Now, again, going to Buffalo and beating these Bills who are red hot, good luck. But I'm starting to see what I worried about with Tua.
Where Colin was wrong.
Listen, Andy Dalton's not as good as Dak, but I thought yesterday he was especially bad. He was wildly inaccurate, and Andy Dalton has to be accurate. You can't give me any running. He's not going to give you a big arm. He's got to be accurate. I thought he was awful yesterday. Troy Aikman touched on it. There was easy stuff that he missed on. And 29 of 47, no touchdowns. The other thing is, he's 0-4 in playoff games. There's a Kirk Cousins thing here where he's never been big in prime time, and this was the biggest game for the Cowboys all year. I thought the game plan was bad. I mean, Andy was their leading rusher, but I thought biggest spot of the year, Andy Dalton was really, really off, and I picked the Giants Friday to win, but Andy was a problem.
Where Colin was right.
Said 6 weeks ago, best team in the NFL is Buffalo. It's not Kansas City. Did you see what they did to Miami's defense? Miami's defense is good, top 3 in the NFL. Destroyed it. Destroyed it. Offensive line's playing better. Stephon Diggs, 76 catches now. He averaged 76 in his career. He had 127, 1,500 yards. Tops in the NFL. We get so caught up on Kansas City, we're afraid to criticize him. Kansas City was 7-4 through 11 weeks, then caught fire. Kansas City's not playing well now. Everything is working for this team. Defensive, brilliant young head coach. Offensive line's offering protection. Josh Allen plays with the confidence of a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They're humming.
Where Colin was wrong.
The Texas Longhorns fired Tom Herman. Now, I just want to throw this out. I know he couldn't beat Oklahoma. I know that matters. I know he struggled with TCU. But he was 32-18 and 4-0 in bowls. You know what Dabo Swinney was in a weaker conference his first 4 years at Clemson? 36-18 and 2-2 in bowls. He didn't have a good recruiting class this year, but he had 3 previous good recruiting classes. I get he couldn't beat Oklahoma. Guess what? Ask Florida. It's not easy. It's Oklahoma. And I know the losses to TCU sting. But I was shocked, and I'm happy for Steve Sarkisian. But folks, 32-18, 4-0 in bowls, and 3 of 4 really good recruiting classes. Listen, Sark, you talk about the cupboard isn't bare. Texas will win next year. I thought they pulled the trigger a year early. Like, I get it. If he lost to TCU and Oklahoma next year, okay, but I don't know. It didn't feel like man overboard yet to me.
Where Colin was right.
Never understood the nitpicking with Justin Herbert. Finished with 31 touchdown passes, rookie record. He was a 4-point student, big, strong, and mobile at Oregon. I didn't know he'd be this good, but everybody was just, he's mechanical. He got better at Oregon every year. He didn't throw to NFL receivers or have NFL backs at Oregon. He had NFL offensive linemen. I think sometimes they're kids. We just nitpick. It's like, from now on, if a kid is a 4-point student, 6'6", strong with a huge arm and is mobile, he's probably going to succeed in the NFL. Like every trait, every physical trait and mental trait was right in front of us. And Joy and I watched the Rose Bowl. We were like, yeah, that's going to work in the NFL. He was a dominant player in the Rose Bowl, dominant player in the Senior Bowl, and everybody nitpicked him.
Where Colin was right.
I've loved Steph Curry since I saw him. I don't understand the lack of respect. He had 62 points last night. Second oldest player to ever score over 60, and the only player at his age to score 62. He's the greatest shooter ever. He's arguably the greatest ball handler ever. He's one of the smartest players that has ever played a professional sport. He's selfless, despite being a dominating scorer. He gets along with everybody. He's coachable. And yet when you ask all these NBA stars about the best player, they always throw shade at him. Folks, he changed the sport. High school, college, AAU, and NBA basketball. International basketball looks different because of Steph Curry. Not even LeBron can say that, because you can't duplicate a lot of what LeBron does. He's just physically different. But, I mean, last night, and as good as Dame Lillard is, Dame makes shots other players wouldn't shoot. He's just insane. But they're 3-0 when he scores over 30, and I think they're 0-3 when he scores under it. So it's not a very good basketball team. Like, he's the only scorer on that basketball team. Good stuff. Trent Dilfer is around the corner. Can't wait for the playoffs this weekend. I told you, I think Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I like the number. I like Pittsburgh's like -4. They rested starters. It just all worked out for Pittsburgh. Now they get him at home. Ben is rested. Veteran head coach. Good spot for Pittsburgh, and I cannot fathom Chicago going to New Orleans. I think the Saints have the best roster in the NFL. Trent Dilfer around the corner.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Go the extra mile in your very own upfitted Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van. You could win in Fox Sports Radio's Ultimate Tailgate Rig Sweepstakes. Eligible until January 24th. I'll have the latest on Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, I've been told, has been offered the Jacksonville Jaguars job. I've been told there are calls being made to assemble a staff. He has health issues. He's weighing it, family issues. I think it's a great job and a great fit. I'll talk about that later. First, Trent Dilfer, decade and a half in the NFL, a Super Bowl and a Pro Bowl. Fans of his high school football team as well at Nashville, Lipscomb Academy. All right, so you played, I didn't. That's obvious. Here's what I didn't like about Doug Pederson. Is that I do believe for a young quarterback, wins matter, off seasons matter, and I thought Jalen Hurts against a great defense had put them in a position to tie the game with a field goal, had put them in a position to win that game, to have a real moment going into the off season, and I don't like how they took it from him. I don't like that at all. That's what bothered me. How's it land for you?
Well, that bothered me, and a lot of other things bothered me. I mean, I actually got angry when that happened because I put on my kind of football player team hat and remembered the years of sacrifice you make and the brothers that you have in the locker room that are sacrificing so much each week to get ready to play. And then I started thinking about what Week 17 feels like to the center, to the defensive tackle, to the linebacker. That physically is putting his livelihood on the line each week. That at the end of the year, he's beat up, he's tired, he's dealing with 5, 6, 7, 8 nagging injuries, and he's going out there to put on the line for his teammates, and you're robbing him of a chance to win a football game. And I just think the whole thing was really, really ugly. And then I started thinking, there's no way that this is Doug's decision, because Doug's a football dude. He's grown up around the game. He was a blue-collar backup quarterback. He was all about the team. He was all about the locker room. I think that's what's made him a successful coach early in his coaching career. I really believe that his strings are being pulled by the front office, that was not his decision. There's no way he would make that decision to do that to Jalen Hurts, to do that to the countless guys that at this time of the season that winning a game matters. It doesn't matter what your record is. Doesn't matter what your draft status is. None of that stuff matters once the ball is kicked off on a Sunday afternoon, a Sunday night in the NFL. You're trying to win a football game. Everything in the NFL is about winning the game that you're playing. It's not about what you're doing in the future when you're in that locker room. It's about winning that game, and you sacrifice a lot to win that game. And I felt really, really bad for those players. And I just can't believe that Doug Pederson would make that decision on his own.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They got a slightly better draft pick.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, players don't. That's for sure. Yeah, players don't. So, here's my theory on Tua. It's probably wrong, but I threw it out. He had a very strong father, into a legendary defensive-minded high school coach, into Nick Saban, into Brian Flores, and that's been his tunnel of football. Don't screw it up. We'll get you there. Make these throws. And there are times I watch him and I think he's had that thing in his ear for 15 years of, listen, just get the routes that are, and I watch him and I think he plays safe. And I think he's more athletic than that. But is it possible that the world he's lived in is 3 defensive-minded coach, a very strong father, and there are times he hears that voice and he plays it safe?
I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's bad. Tua plays the play the way it's supposed to be played. He is very much like Tom Brady this way, that he's very compliant. He wants to win the football game, and he trusts his coaching staff to put the plays in that they feel are best to win the game. And his job is to execute them. He doesn't go outside the box very often. Aaron Rodgers was very much like that early in his career. You play the play the way the coach designs it to play. You can only play that play. Like, I think it's comical that people are blowing up. Why doesn't he throw the ball down the field more? Are you watching the plays? Are you watching what plays are actually being called? There is nobody running down the field. There are no explosive opportunities. You don't have any playmakers. Pull up the Miami Dolphins roster. Search by wide receiver, and you tell me one guy there that's an explosive playmaker. Devontae Parker's falling down on under routes and causing interceptions. So the Tua conversation is a huge conversation. I'm more of a believer than I was before the draft. People that are calling him a bust, people that are saying move on, are literally crazy. I mean, give this kid an offseason, a real offseason, OTAs, more talent around him, a training camp. How about that? Some preseason games. And an offense that is a little more versatile, and I think you'll see the guy you saw at Alabama. If you don't think he can throw the ball down the field, I got a reel of about 75 to 100 plays at Alabama where he's ripping crossers, ripping posts, ripping hole shots, third read backside digs against LSU on 3rd and 18. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The kid can do anything you ask him to do. You just got to give him the tools, the offense, and the time to develop into doing it in the NFL.
So, I've said this, is that coachability matters. I think Lamar Jackson is clearly coachable. I do think he has nice touch, although I don't think he's an elite thrower of the football outside the hash marks. That's okay. He's not everything. Phillip Rivers made a career out of a lot of things he couldn't do, and he made a Hall of Fame to some career. And I look at Baltimore, and you played in that city, and here's why I love Baltimore this year. Nobody's talking about him. It's Buffalo, it's Kansas City, it's Green Bay. Last year, he's the MVP, and you could sense how tight this young kid got. And I look at Baltimore now, I see improvement with him. It's house money. I mean, even in their own division. People like the Steelers. Oh, it's the Brett. They're the 3rd most talked about team in their division. I like this team going forward. Your thoughts?
I love, for all the reasons you're saying. And the chip. I was at that game in Baltimore last year when Tennessee came and upset them, and they were shell-shocked. And they were sowing their oats a little bit going to that thing too. They were pretty confident. They were pretty cocky. They've been punched in the gut. They've had to pick themselves up. They've had to fight their way to the playoffs, and they've had to reestablish who they are. And I think that's the most important thing that's happened with Baltimore this year is in the last 5-6 weeks, they have clearly defined who they are. They're a run for first football team. They have multiple ways of doing it, multiple ways of creating conflict in the defense, and they'll throw the ball in the middle of the football field, and that's okay. They have multiple ways of doing it, with tight ends, with wide receivers going down the middle, with crossers, with backs. But they're going to attack the middle of the football field. They're going to attack you right down the midline of your defense. In the run game, in the play-action game, and most dangerously when Lamar, because you're so caught up in all the other stuff you have to defend, tucks that sucker and goes for about 40 on you. I love Baltimore now. I think they're real physical. hard-nosed defense, and then special teams. In the playoffs, special teams is a huge deal. Nobody talks about it because nobody understands it. That's why you don't hear it talked about on TV very often. But it's a huge deal, and they have one of the all-time great special teams coaches. It's some of the best specialists in the NFL, and they take it more serious than most teams. So I'm very bullish on the Ravens right now.
So Tommy Brady had quite a December. It's funny as I watch him. I said this earlier. I can tell how somebody's going to age based on their traits. Are they curious? Are they compatible with other humans? Do they eat right? Do they work out? Do they sleep? And Big Ben's traits are kind of legendarily average, and Tom's are spectacular. So, it's funny. I look at his arm strength, and I'm like, he always had a B+ arm. It looks like a B+ arm. Are you a little taken back by it, or is this kind of what you thought?
It's kind of what I thought. I mean, you can go back, and we were talking about the Bucs earlier in the year, and they hit a couple bad weeks there, and people were freaking out. I said, just give them time. I mean, give a vet, the greatest leader in the locker room of all time, one of the greatest players who's ever put on cleats. Give him time to integrate with these teammates. Then they get Antonio Brown in the mix. It was also going to take time with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich to kind of find common ground. There is a process that goes on in the National Football League, and the ones that handle it well play the best football late in the season into the playoffs. Nothing about this surprises me. Not one thing. I think they are throwing it for more yards than I thought they would. I thought that it'd be a little more balanced. But this is a really, really dangerous football team. I mean, like the Ravens are in the AFC, the Bucs are in the NFC. They're a team that nobody wants to see. They're super aggressive on defense. Their schemes are a nightmare to prepare for. You're playing against the GOAT. You have all kinds of talented people that he's throwing the ball to. Oh, and by the way, if you sleep on them, they can run the rock, and they're pretty physical up front. So, again, the Bucs and the Ravens are probably the two parallels in both divisions that none of the division winners end up wanting, and none of the conference leaders want to see them in the playoffs.
Finally, you played in a lot of regular season games and some playoff games. Greg Jennings talks about this all the time. It's a whole different thing. It's like playoff hockey does not look like regular season hockey. You can sense it. The hits are more intentional. Give our audience a sense for a minute or two, Trent, just on the playoffs, how some shrink, some elevate.
Yeah, I think there's people that are built for the bigger moments, for one. They don't get anxious. They get enthusiastic about the pressure. The preparation is relentless. And the game, now please don't take this the wrong way, but in the football context is life or death. Everything matters. And there are certain people that can't handle that pressure. And you see those people fall apart in the playoffs. And there's other people that rise to the occasion. They love that. They love the intensity of that life or death in the football context. Drama. I think the physicality of it's another thing. Your body hurts. You're mentally tired. You're emotionally tired. Your families are tired. Everybody's worn out. Who has the grit? Who can pull it from deep within to find the little bit extra in the weight room? Guys are still lifting in the playoffs. Who's getting after their lifts? Who's eating right? Who's sleeping right? Whose study habits are getting better as the year goes on? It's a lot that you put into this time of the season, and some have it and some don't.
Yeah. Sleep, rest. Sounds like my mom growing up, and I wasn't even a football player at that point. Trent, great seeing you. Have fun on the lake with your family. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, it is interesting. Playoff sports is, it's the difference between the Buick Open and the Masters. Nobody has ever talked about anybody, guy caved the Buick Open. Greg Norman caved at the Masters, like one of the great golfers of all time. It's like, there is something about playoff football. You've not been there. Like, I don't like rookie coaches. Nothing against Kevin Stefanski. I get my Tomlin, you get Kevin Stefanski. I get Ben, you get Baker. Like, I just think that's a really good matchup. Sean Payton, Belichick.
Well, because it comes down to situations, and if you've never been in the situation before, you tend to lean to somebody who has a little more experience in the playoffs.
Yeah. By the way, Black Rifle Coffee. It's a company, veteran-owned coffee company, premium coffee to Americans. Purchase at www.blackriflecoffee.com/herd. The code will get you 20% off your purchase of your first coffee club order. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. news.
Dabo. We haven't talked much about Dabo yet.
Oh, boy.
He took some criticism for saying Ohio State was 11th in his final coaches poll this season. And after the Buckeyes shocked Clemson with a huge 49-28 win in the playoff, Dabo was asked if he stands by his ranking.
That had nothing to do with Ohio State. I said they were good enough to beat us, good enough to win the whole thing. I didn't think anybody that didn't play at least 9 games, in my poll, that I wasn't going to put them in the top 10. So I wasn't going to change that just because there was a chance we could play them. So I don't have any regret about that. The only thing I regret is, I obviously do a good enough job getting my team ready.
I regret nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't have said it, I wouldn't have done it, but his reasoning, I guess, is that, I think the ACC and the SEC, Joy, were bitter. I think there was some bitterness, like, okay, I'm getting players hurt, we're going all in on this, and I'm not blaming Ohio State. The Ohio State fans were furious at the Big Ten commissioner.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, but that's unreasonable. We're dealing with an unprecedented situation with COVID. There's no right or wrong answer. We may not find what the right or wrong answer for any of this is until 10, 20 years from now, maybe more. We're still in it. We're still in the situation.
Well,
so, to be mad at them because you were playing less games, that was their decision to make, that they're in charge of their conference, which is why you and I talk about this all the time. There needs to be a CEO of football, of college football. There has to be somebody who's kind of getting everybody on the same page, and then it wouldn't matter what Dabo said. It would just be his opinion. It actually was just his opinion. But
look at these throws.
Justin Fields was incredible. It was an absolute, you know what it felt like, Colin? It felt like fight night.
Yeah.
It felt like you were watching history. We talk about this all the time, what it's like to be at a big fight in Vegas. You're never going to experience this again. Even if these two fighters fight again, they're new fighters. It's a new situation. Maybe they had another fight in between, and they're not the same fighter. This was so unique, and then all of the energy and all of the animosity towards Clemson and Dabo for Ohio State to have a win like that, because it was over. It was over, and you felt like it was over.
Well, I think Alabama, Ohio State you're going to see a lot of points, because I think Nick Saban acknowledged. You can't stop anybody anymore. I mean, Nick Saban's never stopped Trevor Lawrence. He scores on him. So I think Ohio State has the quarterback, the wide receivers, the backs, the weapons to score a lot on Bama. The question is, what will Bama's offense do to Ohio State? I could honestly see 48-42 and not be shocked at all.
But I will say, though, Ohio State's defense was very impressive.
It was. Now, remember on Friday I said I didn't like Clemson's O-line, and I thought Trevor Lawrence was hurried. I just thought he was off.
No, they did an incredible job.
Yeah.
And Ryan Day said it right after the game. They deserve a lot of credit. We're going to talk about Justin Fields. We're going to talk about Dabo. But Ohio State's defense was very impressive.
They made Trevor Lawrence, like LSU did last year, they made him hurry every throw. And even Tom Brady, when he's hurried, is not as... if you watch Trevor, he was unsettled. And by the way, this is what happens. If the people knocking Trevor Lawrence, he's lost 2 games. To LSU and Ohio State. Folks, you're allowed to lose to Ohio State and LSU in college football.
Yeah, it's just...
And not lose your draft spot.
Take a chill pill. So the Jags fired head coach Doug Marrone. He has led the team to a franchise-worst 1-15 record this season. Which also secured them the first overall pick in the draft. Marrone took over as the interim head coach late in 2016, and after leading the team to an AFC title game in 2017, the Jags then had 3 straight losing seasons with 3 straight last place finishes in the AFC South. We kind of all certainly saw this coming.
Yeah.
With the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's also now an active rumor that Urban Meyer may be heading there. It's his job if he wants it. Now, here's what's interesting to me about this job, because a lot of people feel like this is a really good job. So Shad Khan, this is according to Michael Duraco, he's a Jags report for ESPN. Shad Khan said he had roster control in 2020, and he will make sure a GM coming in knows that he will keep that control for now, at least. And then he clarified he wants to be a part of the conversation with the coach and GM on personnel and contracts, but he has final say.
Who has final say?
Shad Khan, the owner.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, that's not it. So, billionaire thinks he's smarter than football GM. Not interested.
No, I would not. I don't. So, to me, if I'm going into a situation like that, I need full control over all that. I, as the coach and GM, actually, the coach and the GM to have the final say. Not even just the coach.
So Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, there's this reputation that Jerry meddled. So if you go back to the first 3 years of it, Jerry didn't, because Jerry spent every penny he had on the Cowboys, and Jerry had to get the business right.
Right.
So Jerry was on the other side of the building for the first 2 or 3 years. Jimmy had total control. It was when Jimmy started winning Super Bowls that Jerry said, hey, this is my toy. I want to have fun. That's the rub. That's the problem. But Jimmy Johnson, for the first 3 years, was on the football side of the building, and he called every shot. If Urban Meyer gets this, and I got first year on the job, I got billionaire guy,
I mean, for business decisions, for COVID decisions, and even maybe final say on contracts, like they're the ones writing the check. Sure.
Right.
Personnel decisions?
Zero. I'm not interested in your opinion.
At all. I mean, I just don't think that's a good. I don't think that's a recipe for success in any business at all. Just do what you do best, and hire people who are great at what they do, and let them do what they do best. It's very.
You look at the history of great owners. Robert Kraft. Does not tell Bill what to do on draft day.
He is, at least to our knowledge, he has meddled one time, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. And that worked out.
And by the way, Gail Benson, owner of the Saints, never bothers Jeff Ireland and Mickey Loomis, and they probably draft better than any team in the NFL, because she's not going, I like the tight end from Missouri. That's
I mean, how did that work out for Dwayne Haskins and the Washington football team?
Dan Snyder wanted Dwayne Haskins. The coaches didn't.
But they have the final say. It's their team. Finally, the Jets also parted ways with their head coach, Adam Gase, after 2 seasons. Gase was tasked with turning around a franchise that hasn't been to the playoffs. 2010. A great year. Had a good defense that year, 2010. But instead, left the Jets with back-to-back losing seasons. He also led the team to a franchise worst 13-game losing streak to start 2020 and finished with an overall record of 9-23. Interestingly enough, Steve Sarkisian is going to be headed to Texas to take over for Tom Herman. Bruce Feldman is reporting that Nick Saban is considering Adam Gase or Bill O'Brien to replace Sarkisian.
Well, the advantage to being Adam Gase and Bill O'Brien and working with Nick, they've been head coaches. Nick likes to hire coordinators who have been head coaches because they understand his role. So Jim McElwain, right? If you go back to it, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian. So, so when a head coach understands the volume of he'll be your coordinator, but he understands what Saban's going through, and I think Saban really appreciates, because Saban tends to meddle on the defensive side. It's his defense. Offensively, he wants a CEO and a guy that's been a head coach, now a coordinator. So it's a great fit.
And Joel mentioned that Sarkisian was kind of in place to replace Nick. So whoever comes in that position, if they do well, could be heir apparent to the Alabama dynasty. So that's actually really a great job. Now what the Jets are going to do is a whole other conversation.
Good stuff. Urban Meyer, Jags. I'm going to discuss that coming up next. Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I love being able to share my story with you on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and I get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. I'm still on my own journey, but I want to be transparent with you, because as I was posting all the highlights of my life on social media, I was breaking down. And too many people fall victim to the picture-perfect image of the high life, so I created a space to discuss the good and the bad. We can laugh, man, we gonna learn, and most of all, I hope to inspire you to go on this journey with me to better mental health. This is gonna be your church, your turn-up, and everything in between. So join me on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, a safe space for every kind of person. Listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams every Tuesday, a part of the Black Up on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Good to have you in. We were going to schedule Urban Meyer at this time, but Urban is not comfortable answering NFL questions. Totally respect that. He is rumored to be offered the Jacksonville Jaguars job, so he's not comfortable answering those questions. And frankly, in my career, I've only ever had one rule with guests. I can ask anything. Bobby Knight, I declined an interview at ESPN with Bobby. He wouldn't answer the questions I wanted to answer. I love Urban. I've known him forever. Totally respect him. He's not comfortable answering those questions, but I'm not comfortable bringing him on and not asking those questions. I think I have a certain duty and responsibility to the audience behind an Ohio State question to ask Urban Meyer stuff. So I'm good with him. Hopefully he's good with me. He's been great to me through the years, but I can't bring coaches on or anybody on and not have a full slate of questions I can ask, excuse me. And so he's not comfortable. I've been told, here's what I know. I've been told it's his job if he wants it. He's got health issues he's worried about, so I can't speak of those. I think he'd be great. Pete Carroll is what I would say, he projects as Pete Carroll a little bit, where first 2 or 3 years, he would mop up in the draft because he's recruited all these players. He really has a heartbeat of college football personnel that nobody in the NFL does. He's also a great personnel eye, and he also is going to inherit Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville also has a little bit of a college feel to it more than an NFL town. Miami's a pro sports town. Jacksonville's a college town. I went there for the Super Bowl week. They had high school football was on the front page. So it would be, he has a house in Sarasota. He knows Florida. He coached in Gainesville. So I think it's a perfect fit for him. And I also think that franchise would have a rock star head coach and a rock star at quarterback, and I think they need it. You know, the New York Giants win Super Bowls, and they're boring. And they still fill the stadium. Jacksonville needs something big, some gravitas, and I think Urban is the right coach. But there's health issues. They're real. Years ago when he left Florida, he had a massive weight loss and real issues to deal with. These were not media creations. It was frightening for him. So that's where we stand on that. I was told yesterday that calls were being made assembling a potential staff. I don't know who was making those calls, but it was a staff where there was Urban connections. I was told he was never really interested in the Texas job. Which was a rumor. I didn't buy into it. I just didn't think that was going to happen. So that's where we're at with Urban. I wish him luck. I do think Ohio State-Bama is going to be a crazy shootout and all sorts of fun. I know he can't wait to watch that. And I think he would be an absolute home run with Jacksonville and a perfect fit. My only concern with Urban is he doesn't have, if you go start looking at Matt Rule and Tom Coughlin and Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh, they all had NFL connections while they were in college. They either played, position coaches. Urban's got none of it. He's kind of catching up. And he's spent the last year, 2 years, catching up on the NFL. But there is a feel to the NFL that is just separate from college. You don't get Troy State. You don't get buys at the right time. Steve Spurrier bombed. Saban struggled. Most college coaches just are out of their element. That part concerns me. But I do think he's an offensive, creative genius, and that's where the sport's going, and he would put together a really good staff. But he wasn't comfortable answering NFL stuff. Totally get it. Maybe he's been offered the job. That's what I've been told. He didn't want to answer it. So, and, you know, I've got to ask that if he's on. I will say this. Green Bay's win over Chicago. Bear fans are funny. Like, sometimes ask yourself, are you trying to convince other people of something, or are you trying to convince yourself of something? I see that a lot on Twitter with politics. You're not trying. You think you're trying to convince me of something with Trump. You're trying to convince yourself. Okay, that had nothing to do with it. I'm not changing my mind. The Chicago Bear fans, listen. Trubisky had no touchdowns and an interception yesterday against Aaron Rodgers, biggest game of the year. You put him on a stage with Aaron Rodgers. You tell me what it looks like. It's not close. With an offense. Totally catering to him. He's 1-6 against Green Bay. He is the 4th best quarterback, most talented quarterback in the division. I think Kirk Cousins has more natural throwing talent. You can go 9-6 with him, but it feels very Blake Bortles. The Jags were trying to convince themselves Blake Bortles was something other than just like an average NFL quarterback, and that's what Trubisky is. And Blake Bortles got to an AFC championship, and you can win games when the defense is great. You have a great running back. You have 1-star receiver. That's what Blake Bortles had, and a good coach. But Chicago, ask yourself this. Here's the simplest way. On the open market, if Chicago needed a quarterback. Would they pursue Mitch Trubisky? No, they wouldn't. Bill Belichick needs a quarterback. He will not pursue Mitch Trubisky. Kyle Shanahan needs a quarterback. They will not pursue Mitch Trubisky. Chicago's trying to validate drafting him so high. And this is what general managers do. They draft it, and then they put pressure on the coach, and they want to validate the pick. And are you in this thing to win Super Bowls or not? Is that what you're here? I mean, I'm not talking. Some owners aren't. They just want to make a profit. But if you're a GM or a coach, you're in it to win it. That's not going to win it. You're not. Aaron Rodgers is going nowhere. So you got 5 more years Aaron Rodgers. And he and Matt LaFleur get better every game they coach together. And I'm not even talking about you got to face Shanahan. I saw a story this weekend. Kyle Shanahan's moving off Garoppolo. Chris Mortensen reported. So he's going to get a quarterback. And McVay can coach. And Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. And I mean, you're seeing all these great college guys come out. Many of them are going to land in the NFC. And so, you know. Anytime I hear a Chicago Bear fan yapping on about Trubisky, I'm like, you're not trying to convince me. You're trying to convince yourself you can beat Aaron Rodgers with that. Because I don't believe it. So stop trying to convince me we had a great president or Trubisky. You're trying to convince yourself of that. Because nobody's buying it. And, you know, I wish him the best, but, you know, where's the it? Arm, weak. Accuracy, hit and miss. Athletic ability, not bad. You can move around a little bit. You can move around, nothing wrong with that. But a lot of convincing going on by Chicago fans and Chicago people, and you can just keep saying it all you want, and nobody's buying it. You can't have Rodgers is a significantly better talent, Stafford's a significantly better talent. Then you can argue about Kirk Cousins, who I think is a better thrower of the football. He's not as athletic as Trubisky, and Mitch is athletic. He can move around. There's some Jalen Hurts there where you don't think he's a great thrower, but he can make some plays. And Matt Nagy's a smart coach, and their defense is good, and Allen Robinson's great, and they have to get another running back and keep adding to the offensive line. All right, Tony Gonzalez last hour. We've got 14 playoff teams, and they come in all shapes and all sizes, and we'll talk about that coming up. Hour 3 on a Monday next.
Do you love all things geeky? Well, so do we. Join us, Jonathan Strickland and Ariel Caston, on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast as we take on the geeky news of today and turn it into so bad it's good, quick bites of fanfic. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's been 30 years since the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210. 30 years since we walked the halls of West Beverly High, and since we all hung out at the Peach Pit. Relive it all with Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling on their new podcast, 90210 OMG. We get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happened. Join them as they rewatch every episode of the beloved 90s TV show from the very beginning. Listen to 90210 OMG on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you love all things geeky? Well, so do we. Join us, Jonathan Strickland and Ariel Caston, on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast as we take on the geeky news of today and turn it into so bad it's good, quick bites of fanfic. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Tonight, it's primetime Mountain West College hoops on FS1. The Colorado State Rams take on conference heavyweight San Diego State. Tonight at 9 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
What's the difference between an AMG skeptic and an AMG believer? A split second, all it takes. Go to mbusa.com/AMG, Mercedes-AMG Driving Performance. Tony Gonzalez gave me the nicest Christmas present. It was a face serum. But I didn't have my contacts in when he gave it to me, and I thought I was supposed to drink it. And so it looks like a shake, and it's in a very sophisticated, expensive bottle, and I was like, oh, I think it was a protein shake, and I almost drank it. And then I got home, and I'm like, serum? And it's like a face thing, and it's like, by the way, you don't rub it on and look like Tony Gonzalez, unfortunately.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You rub it on, and I look like me with stuff I rubbed on my face. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the good dudes, 17 NFL seasons, 14-time Pro Bowler, tied for the most all-time. It's Tony Gonzalez now joining us live. All right, you may be a pretty face, but you're a tough guy, and when it comes to football players, Trent Dilfer said this earlier, football's hard. Football practice is hard. You get to the end of a season, and the Eagles are in a go-either-way game, and you go to the third-string quarterback. And Tony, I didn't play the game, but I watched it, and I thought, I think as a player, I would be pissed. I wouldn't like that at all. How did it land for you?
Watching it because I didn't know what was coming. So I think probably like the rest of America, I was a little shocked. In fact, I said in my head, what the hell is Doug Pederson doing right now? I don't understand this. Because this is supposed to be a big-time game. It's prime time. They flexed this game because of all the implications that it had on it. But if I knew ahead of time during the week, and it sounds like he had said that he was going to put him in, then I guess I can't be too upset. But at the same time, I think if I was playing as a veteran guy, an established veteran, I would have been like, hey, get me out of here. I mean, if we're all just going to ride this into the offseason, this isn't Little League football, and everybody gets a chance to play. I looking back on it, I don't understand it. Doug Peterson has his reasons for it. I would have kept Jalen Hurts in there, let him get that experience. It doesn't sound like the relationship between Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson is good. He wants out of there now. It looks like get your young quarterback, get your future franchise quarterback as many reps as you can give him in this prime time, big time game. Don't get a quarterback that probably, he didn't look that good to me in the few little sample size that he had out there, the few minutes of playing. He's not a future guy. I don't understand it, but maybe Doug Peterson has the ultimate plan. But I would have definitely kept Jalen Hurts in there and let's see what he can do. And it looks like Philly, if he would have stayed in there, they probably would have won that game.
Yeah, no, I thought Jalen didn't have a big spectacular night, but he's a playmaker, and you knew going into that game it was going to be low scoring because Washington and Philadelphia have good defenses, so I didn't like it at all. So the one playoff matchup, I mean, I think the Saints are going to hammer the Bears, but I do think Cleveland unfortunately got a bad break. So now they have to play Pittsburgh again with Pouncey rested, Big Ben rested, 4 of their 6 best players rested, and I think in most instances, I think Cleveland could go toe-to-toe with them. I just think it's a bad spot to now have to play the same team again. You tell me, did you ever have to play somebody back-to-back or close to back-to-back?
Yeah, I think we did. In the playoffs, my 1997 playoff experience, I mean, we played Denver. We actually were the better team that year. It was the year Denver, John Elway went on to win the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl they had. We had split with them during the regular season. And when you play a team that third time, it's just like they know you now, especially when you've given them your best shot. And I got to believe Cleveland, was giving their best shot because they needed to win that game to get into the playoffs. So now they know what you at least thought was going to be your best shot in front. Pittsburgh now has seen Cleveland, where Pittsburgh's probably like, hey, we didn't care about winning that game. That's why we didn't play our best players. We know what you guys had success on us now. We're going to address that now, and we're going to show you guys some. I'm sure they were very vanilla because they knew this could be the possible outcome. They didn't show any of their good stuff, and now they have the advantage going into the game.
So there's 4 teams that are indisputably hot. Green Bay's hot, Buffalo is hot, Baltimore is hot, and Tampa Bay's pretty hot. And then there's 2 teams that are really good. Kansas City and the Saints, I don't think they're hot, but I just think they're really, really good. So go back to your Atlanta and Kansas City career. You would think if you're hot, it's good. But I've heard coaches before say, we peaked in week 12, and we just never quite found the magic. Do you think being as hot as Baltimore matters, or is it just it's a whole new sport in the playoffs?
You've heard that, and it can go both ways. You just said it. I mean, you've seen teams that get hot in December. They remember what you do in December, and then you get to the playoffs and you get your butt kicked first round. So, and you see teams that don't do well, and they were kind of lackadaisical towards the end of the season, then they turn it right back on as soon as that first game goes back out there. So I really don't know. I say it can't hurt, though. I mean, I'd rather be the hot team going into the playoffs, especially someone like Baltimore, and it's really Tom Brady and that Buck offense finally looking like the offense we thought they could look like. And guys stepping up, guys like, these aren't guys coming out of nowhere. Antonio Brown obviously is an established player, one of the best receivers ever, and he didn't look like it because he's getting his legs back, getting that time. Now he's looking like AB. He's not totally like AB. He looks like he's ascending. He's getting better. The connection between Godwin and Brady is getting better. I talked about it, the buffet offense that they have, all those ingredients, all those good flavors. They're starting to come together. The symphony is starting to play better together. So that's a team that I think of everybody. You talk about getting hot at the right time. That's the team I think has gotten hot at the right time, and it looks like they're going to carry that over into the playoffs.
Yeah, Tony, in your playoff experience, I asked Trent Dilfer this about an hour and a half ago. Some players rise, some players shrink. And, Greg Jennings told me a couple hours ago, he goes, I saw teams come into Green Bay, and you could tell in the weather they shrink. They don't want to be there. Talk about playoff football. You were a good playoff performer, but not everybody reacts the same way, Tony. These are all standalone national TV games. There's a lot of heat. There's a lot more media. Talk about the difference regular season to postseason.
Yeah, well, obviously the concentration goes up. The level of anxiety, your sphincter gets a little tight. And that's really a measure of what a good player is to me. That's ultimately, what do you do when the lights are on? What do you do when that's the only game on? There is no other games on right now. How are you going to play? It doesn't matter what you do on the practice field. It doesn't matter what you do on the regular season. This is when it really, really, really counts. And there are players out there that actually play worse during the regular season. I think probably Eli Manning is probably someone like that, where when the lights came on, he played better in the playoffs and in the big spots. So yeah, that's what a lot of, and usually you see that with young guys. We're going to see some young guys in the playoffs this year. Let's see how they react. I can't wait. I cannot wait actually to see Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield to me right now, I've talked about it before. He's that pizza player. He's good. He's a good quarterback. Can't take that away from him. But I want to see him ascend. I want to see what he does now in a playoff against Ben Roethlisberger. That first round. Let's see what you got now. All those. He does well at acting. We know that. He can do that. But let's see it now in the football field. That's one game that I'm really excited to see how somebody.
All right, Tony Gonzalez. Kansas City's not playing particularly well. I don't know. I think Buffalo, right now, Tony, Buffalo looks so good to me. Oh, my God, Baltimore's on fire. Baltimore's got no pressure. I know this is sacrilegious to say it. I think Buffalo's going to win the AFC. I really do. Do you think I'm nuts? I mean, what do your eyes tell you?
I think you, absolutely. You're a wise man for that. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Chiefs because the Chiefs have the only thing I can say about the Chiefs is that maybe they've been playing to the level of their. We've been talking about that the last month. Like, what is taking so long? And just like last year, in the first quarters of each of those playoff games, how they had to overcome the 10-point deficit. And they can turn it on because they have that man you're showing there right there. Well, those two men. They got the big man in the red, and then they got Patrick Mahomes. So Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, it's like when they decide to turn it on, watch out. They got the talent. They need Clyde Edwards-Helaire, though. I believe they need that guy back to help keep the balance on that offense. But Buffalo, you're right. Josh Allen looks like the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there with Aaron Rodgers, where it looks flawless. So both those teams looking good. But watch out. I think the Chiefs definitely can turn it on, and then we'll say, oh, okay. I knew it. You knew they were going to do it.
Good seeing you, the Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. Thanks, buddy, and thanks for the face serum. I really appreciate that. I'm a regular now, and you can be my dealer and get it to me.
I'm your pusher, baby. By the way, it's called Caldera.
Caldera.
Check it out. Really good stuff.
Okay, so we did Modelo beer, pistachios, and now he's got face serum. He's become quite a spokesman. How about that?
Well, I've been hanging out with Terry Bradshaw too much.
commercial with Terry, too.
Tostitos.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, appreciate it. Yeah, he's selling face serum, beer. Some of it's good for you, some not quite as good.
I love Modelo. It's one of the only beers I drink.
It's the only beer I drink.
I have it in my fridge right now.
He's got his mom on the commercial.
She's excellent.
I know. So I feel like a kinship, a friendship there.
Ever wonder what would happen if the 7 dwarfs from Snow White met up with the 13 dwarfs from The Hobbit?
Ever gone into a deep discussion about who is the ultimate mouse? Mickey, Mighty, or Danger?
Ever dressed up like Doctor Who at a water park?
Then join Ariel Caston
and Jonathan Strickland on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast,
where we discuss all things good and geeky, from news to hot button items to personal geek failings, and then mash it all together in a hilarious melange of nerdiness.
He's Jonathan. I'm Ariel. You'll find us on Large Nerdron Collider. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy Taylor with the news.
This is the Herd Line News.
I love that Tony has gotten you into a skincare routine.
Well, I'm going to do it until the bottle runs out.
It actually says something that you don't have a skincare routine. You look great.
Man, a lot of makeup, a lot of balm.
Oh my god, I have a morning routine. I have different lotions for the morning, and then for at night, different masks. Yes, but I have sensitive skin, so I'm very particular about it.
You have sensitive skin?
Yeah, if I change to different lotion,
well,
my whole face peels. Yeah,
Joy.
It's a journey. I do. I swear I do. I take care of it. That's why I don't freak out. Anyway, no one cares about this. Aaron Rodgers lit up the Bears defense with 240 yards and 4 touchdowns on his way to a 35-16 Packers victory. He finished his MVP campaign with a league-leading 48 touchdown passes and the fewest interceptions of any quarterback who started all 16 games with 5. Quite a season. The win clinched the top seed in the NFC, for the Packers, who now have a bye this week. The Bears still made the playoffs because the Cardinals lost to the Rams. Cardinals-Rams game was wild.
It was weird.
Yes. They'll travel to New Orleans to face the Saints on Sunday, will the Bears, and obviously the Packers have the bye. I don't feel good about this game for the Bears.
Oh, I think it's a terrible matchup for the Bears. Yeah, I believe the Saints have the best roster in the NFL, but somebody said something earlier. No, it was Greg Jennings, and he really summed it up. Drew Brees, cold weather, Lambeau. All year I've thought Green Bay could get to the NFC Championship and not through, but this morning, Seattle's offense right now is uninspiring to say the least. And I don't think New Orleans can go up there and beat Green Bay. I just don't think the Rams offense now without Goff, forget it.
No, it's totally fair. And that doesn't say anything. That's not a knock on what Green Bay is capable of.
But sometimes you get breaks.
Yeah, and breaks, and they had an incredible season and won the games they were supposed to win, so they get the bye and it goes through Lambeau.
Yeah.
That's because they're a great team, and that works in your favor. Everybody wants home field advantage. Even in a COVID year where you don't have fans, you still don't have to travel. This is still your space, still your stadium. But that's a testament to the Packers' season.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose. They won that game the way they did, so they could get the top seed. But I'm with you. It's going to be a tall task for the Saints to go there and do that, assuming obviously they make it to the NFC Championship game. But they're going to have the Bears. I'm not going to write anyone off in the playoffs this year because I think it's been a really wild year and there's a lot that can happen. It's going to be a very interesting game, though. So the Ravens made a statement on their way to clinching their spot in the playoffs. They beat the Bengals 38-3, set a franchise record 404 total rushing yards in a single game. Lamar Jackson accounted for 97 of those yards, which gave him 1,005 yards on the season, making him the first quarterback to have multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. They will go to Tennessee in the wild card round.
Love Baltimore in that game.
And will look to avenge last year's early playoff loss to the Titans.
And I don't want to hear it's just Bengals because the Bengals have given some good teams.
The fits.
Yeah, so I thought he threw the ball really, really well. I just love now mocking people who tell me he can't throw. It's like, oh, it's funny. I watched him yesterday for an hour and he threw the ball. He's not Justin Herbert. The ball doesn't fly out of his hands.
I think we also have to get out of the space where we compare each quarterback in the league squarely now. There's so many different types.
Sizes, shapes.
Yes. Skill sets. Like, they're just, it's so, Kyler Murray is a running quarterback and he looks nothing like Lamar Jackson.
By the way, if you get the right coordinator, Lamar wouldn't be this effective without Greg Roman. So, and by the way, Brady, Josh McDaniels, they were like brothers. Like, a lot of this, Brian Daboll and Josh Allen, like, saved his career.
There's a lot of moving parts to all this. It's not very simple.
No, the right coordinator goes a lot. Look how comfortable Ryan Tannehill is with, Smith? Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator of Tennessee. I've never seen Ryan Tannehill as a Pro Bowler. He was so inconsistent with Adam Gase in Miami. Some of that is just the coach.
Fit matters, and they look great. They've won 5 straight to finish the season and ended the season with a record of 11-5. They haven't lost since Lamar returned from the COVID list. I love them going into the playoffs. I do think momentum matters a little bit. You have a little more confidence. Things are clicking. You're not working through things. You don't have to make major adjustments going into the playoffs.
Tennessee can't stop anybody.
They're still super dangerous. Derrick Henry, 2,000 yards rushing this season. He's a problem. If they can contain him, which teams have been able to do throughout the season, if they can contain Derrick Henry, then I'm going to lean towards
Baltimore. How about
the
Ryan Tannehill throw at the end of that? Was that the craziest thing? I mean, that's Ryan Tannehill. Your first 5 years in the league, you're like, Ryan Tannehill comes out. There's 30 seconds left. Bomb. Perfectly
thrown. It was gorgeous.
Best throw of the week.
Yep. Finally, the Eagles lost to Washington, ending the Giants' hopes of getting into the playoffs. Many players and fans were angry at the Eagles for seemingly throwing the game. Giants corner Logan Ryan had a different outlook. After being eliminated, he told Peter King there will be a lot of opinions about whether they were trying to win. You want to play the game to win, but I don't play for the Eagles. I don't coach for the Eagles. It's their team. Winning 6 games doesn't give us much right to get pissed off about this. We didn't play consistent enough all year to earn it. Yes, I would tend to agree with him in this space. I don't really care about the Giants whining and complaining about not getting in.
That's a separate issue than benching Jalen Hurts, though.
There are 2 separate issues.
Right.
Yes, Giants and Giants fans,
get over it.
Get over it. You need to win more games, and then you don't have to rely on Washington to lose
totally
to get into the playoffs. So I'm not crying a river for you. Eagles, on the other hand, and for everyone watching that primetime game last night, I mean, it's just, what are you doing?
It's amazing. If Jalen Hurts was in his 11th year, I get it. Jalen Hurts. You're trying to win a game against a rival, knock him out of the playoffs. Carson Wentz, you've offended.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is your guy.
Your future.
I just Doug, Jalen Hurts. That win mattered.
It absolutely
go
did.
Into the offseason you knocked him out of the playoffs.
It's a division rival. I mean, it says something that there is collective confusion around the entire industry, fans, other teams, and media, that nobody understands what the purpose of that was. Who cares about this? No one, what? This is what the preseason next year is for.
Yeah.
You got to get him some snaps for what?
It's like not high school football.
It was really ridiculous.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
It
News.
is funny, though. There's 14 playoff teams. 4 I would classify as red hot. Baltimore, Buffalo, Green Bay, Tampa. 2 are really good, but not what I would say red hot. Kansas City, New Orleans. 8 have major issues. Tennessee's got a bad defense. Seattle, bad offense. Chicago, Colts, Washington, Rams have quarterback issues. Cleveland, sputtering here at the end, has a terrible back 7. Pittsburgh can't run the ball. And it shows you. You can have flaws and make the playoffs. You can have chaos in the middle of a season. Bears lost 6 straight. You can have a defense that may be the worst in the league, Tennessee. You can have an offense right now that may be the worst in the league, Seattle. Cleveland's back end, forget it. Like, their secondary, linebackers, bad. The key is, can you hide your flaws? By the way, the Colts limited a quarterback. But they play to their strengths with their O-line and their running game. Cleveland back end's atrocious. They play to their state. their strength, offensive line, running game. So Cleveland and the Colts have huge flaws, but you have to do something really well to make the playoffs. The Bears defense, the Cleveland running game, the Colts running game, and offensive line. You got to do something well. Tennessee's offense, but you don't have to be perfect. The key is, can you play to your strengths to hide your flaws? That's it. I mean, it's amazing. You can even struggle at quarterback. You can have an immobile quarterback, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers. You can have a quarterback, Mahomes, who's playing his worst football of the year. You do not have to be even a great team. You have to have something about your team has to be great. And it has to be great enough that it can hide your primary flaw. That's why a good O-line and a good running game, Colts, Cleveland, Tennessee, they're not great teams. But when they get rolling running the ball, they can hide that defense, which is not on the field much. Coming up next, our 3-word game to wrap up a Monday.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeart Radio app.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeart Radio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
And you never know who's going to stop by. Our record store is frequented by musicians, producers, writers, actors, and especially lots of unfamous nobodies like you and I, Tara.
That's right.
As long as they are excited to talk about music, they'll probably make an appearance in our record store sooner or later, and we can't wait to talk to them.
I want to find out what their top 5 debut albums are.
I want to find out who their top 5 Beatles are.
Wait.
Exactly. So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Supplement I take every day is M-Drive. Powerful ingredients backed by science. Refine your prime with M-Drive. After the show, I do like a gambling show with Carissa Thompson and Jason McIntyre called Walk the Line. So I'm just looking at my notes today. So you may want to go, it's a digital thing. Blah, blah, blah. All right, Joey, here we go. Best for last, 3-word game. Every NFL game succinctly described in just 3 words. Here we go. Miami and Buffalo. Bills finish best. They've won 9 of 10 games. First team to enter the playoffs. Winning 6 straight games by 10-plus points since the 2014 Seahawks. So they are absolutely on fire. Remember that Seahawk team? We thought it was going to be a 5-year dynasty. Yeah, this is the hottest team since Seattle back then. Baltimore, Cincinnati, the forgotten Ravens. 39 straight games with at least 100 yards rushing, and this matters. The best point differential in the NFL this year, plus 165. What does that mean? They'll blow you out. If you're not ready to play, just to give you an example, Cleveland is a playoff team with a negative point differential. It means you're explosive, and in the playoffs, you can't rely on 13-play drives. Sometimes, you got to get a freebie, and they'll do it. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Why so close? TJ Watt didn't play, Pouncey didn't play, Big Ben didn't play, Mason Rudolph played. In this game, Cleveland had it wrapped up, and the Steelers nearly overcame a 15-point fourth-quarter deficit. Baker did call a play called Maserati at the end of the game, because I called him a Mazda out of college. Minnesota, Detroit, did not watch. Jets and New England. Gaze closed, finally. 15 of his 20 three losses were by double digits. 9 and 23, and I think the most troubling thing, not only Darnold regressed, but when you couple it with the rise of Ryan Tannehill since he's left Gase and gone to Arthur Smith, the coordinator in Tennessee, Adam Gase is done getting head football coaching jobs, at least in the NFL. Dallas, New York Giants, a Dallas dud. First of all, they're 0-16 last 2 years if they don't score at least 30 points. So Dallas has one way to win, shootout. And Andy Dalton stunk. Andy really struggled. Accuracy issues all day. Weather was not a factor. He was also sacked 6 times. I just thought it was a poor game plan. You could tell very early. Both teams were ugly. But one team shouldn't be ugly. One team has a Super Bowl coach. One team has really good offensive personnel. Total dud by the Cowboys. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, 43 years young. Bucs scored on 8 of their 9 possessions. The exception, the victory formation. They ran it. They threw it. Tom moved it. Threw it. 40-plus points in back-to-back games for the first time in Tampa Bay Buccaneer history. Packers-Bears, MVP. Aaron leads the NFL in every category that matters. Matt LaFleur in Aaron's second year. And then they got a star quarterback, a star receiver, a star back, and good enough secondary and third receivers to make it work. Also a good young tight end. So, I was watching this game yesterday. For Green Bay in January, it's kind of good football weather. I was sitting there thinking, that's not bad football weather at all. Guys I see some bare arms there. Raiders, Denver, irrelevant, but entertaining. 24 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Go-ahead Raider touchdown. Raiders had 4 turnovers in the game, couple of fumbles, couple of interceptions. Drew Lock threw for 340 yards. So Drew actually played pretty well. It was a little bit of a mess. But Denver's got to get... Vic Fangio's a good defensive coach. Their defense hadn't played particularly well. And good for the Raiders. Jacksonville Colts, Old Man Rivers. Yeah. Fewest completion yards in a game since week 9. Passer rating in the 70s. Boy, they need that running game to hum. These old quarterbacks, September, October in the sun, gets later in the year, they start looking their age. Phillip looked old yesterday. Chargers, Chiefs, Herbert needs coach. Anthony Lynn fired today. Good guy. Team played hard. But as Joy said earlier, Justin Herbert sort of reset the clock for everybody in the NFL, from Tua to the Chargers ownership group and general manager. He is a spectacular once-in-a-decade talent. The Chargers have their Dan Fouts, except he's mobile and bigger. Now they got to get the right unit around him. Arizona Rams, off a cliff. Cliff Kingsbury's Cardinals started the year 6-3, 2-5 in their last 7. Didn't love all the coaching moves. They feel very Kyler Murray dependent. I think they have to reshuffle some of this staff. Seahawks Niners, not that dangerous. 280 total yards. Offensive line isn't working. Look at their last 9 games. They're averaging 220 yards offense. It's ugly. Saints Carolina, league's best roster. Kamara's out. I'll give Ty Montgomery the ball. He had 100 yards. Emmanuel Sanders, 9 catches. They were 6-0 against the NFC South this year. Tennessee, Houston, tighten the defense. For the last 5 games, the Titans allowed 400-plus yards. And Washington, Philadelphia, that was Doug Pederson. What is going on? I think if you have Jalen Hurts and you already burn that Carson Wentz bridge, I do a better job of making sure Jalen Hurts is happy. That wasn't the way to start the relationship. We're gone. Speak for yourself around the corner. For joining everybody, thank you so much. And Monday, be safe. It's the Herd.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more
talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now, podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys, AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything, everything. Love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast.